Namaste friends. In previous lecture, I talked about requirement of brakes, stopping distance, effectiveness of brakes, factors affecting effectiveness of brakes, and friction materials used in brakes. These are all primary aspects of brakes, but quite important. Brakes can be classified into three groups as number 1 friction brakes, number 2 fluid brakes, and number 3 electric brakes. Friction brakes use friction to create resistance to motion. This is the most common way of controlling motion. In fact, automobiles are provided with friction brakes only. Most of the heavy vehicles also have friction brakes. Fluid brakes have a chamber with impeller inside it. At the time of application of brakes, chamber is filled with water. Impeller inside the chamber rotates with road wheel. This produces churning effect causing resistance to motion. Loss of kinetic energy occurs and this lost energy is converted into heat. Heat thus produced is suitably dissipated. Electric brakes use electricity generator driven by road wheels. Kinetic energy is converted into electrical energy in the form of electric current. At the time of application of brakes, electrical resistance is introduced. This reduces the electric current. Electrical energy thus lost is converted into heat. This heat is suitably dissipated. Application of fluid brakes and electric brakes is rare and limited. As friction brakes are most commonly used, I intend to talk about them in detail. As the name indicates, friction causes resistance to motion. This friction is created in road wheels and resistance to motion occurs. In road wheels, friction is created in two different ways. One way is creating friction between brake shoes and drum of road wheel. These are known as drum brakes. Other way is to create friction between disc and calipers. This is known as disc brake. We will learn about them one by one. Drum brakes. What is being termed here as drum is the inner portion of wheel in shape similar to drum. We have brake shoes that come in frictional contact with inner surface of drum and motion is restricted. As an example, look at the brakes of your bicycle. As you press the brake lever, brake shoes come in frictional contact with the inner surface of wheel. This causes friction and motion is restricted. I have taken up the example of brakes in bicycle because you can see them very conveniently. In automobiles, it works in similar way. The main components of drum brakes are number 1 brake shoes and number 2 wheel cylinder. Brake shoes. These have friction material either riveted or pasted on metallic body. Friction material, also known as brake lining, is made of non-asbestos material. These are rubber, glass, different types of resins and Kevlar. For heavy-duty vehicles, sintered iron is used. Another category of materials is copper, brass and steel fibers. These are molded with adhesive to form brake lining. Another costly option for friction materials is ceramic with copper used as lining material. These are light in weight and have better heat dissipation properties. In addition to it, they last longer because of their superior wearing properties. When riveted, care is to be taken that rivet head does not project outside the lining. If so, rivet head will have frictional contact with inner surface of drum and it will be spoiled. When lining is pasted, it is essential that it be not removed because of frictional contact. Wheel cylinder. Wheel cylinder is the term used for cylinder located inside the road wheel. It has a piston that is pushed by fluid. Piston is linked with brake shoe. Movement of pistons in cylinder causes outward movement of brake shoes that brings these in frictional contact with inner surface of wheel drum. Drum brakes are broadly classified as number 1 leading trailing drum brakes, number 2 twin leading drum brakes and number 3 duo servo drum brakes. Leading trailing drum brakes. To understand the details of construction, let us refer to diagram. The diagram shows two brake shoes pivoted at independent anchor pins on lower side. These are held in position with the help of two springs. In the upper portion, wheel cylinder is located. When brake pedal is pressed, wheel cylinder gets fluid supply that causes outward movement of pistons. For the sake of simplicity, pistons inside cylinder have not been shown. Neither details of fluid supply to wheel cylinder have been shown. Onward movement of pistons pushes brake shoes outwards against the force of springs about anchor pins. Outermost part of shoes, that is brake lining, comes in frictional contact with inner surface of drum. This causes resistance to motion of wheel and in turn to that of automobile. When brake pedal is released, fluid returns and pistons are pushed inwards. This causes inward movement of brake shoes and resistance to motion is removed. This is facilitated by two springs that bring back brake shoes to original position. It is very essential that when not needed, resistance to motion be completely removed. If not so, automobile will have to overcome it. This will cause extra load on engine. This situation is highly undesirable. It is essential that when brakes are applied, resistance to motion occurs. But it is equally essential when not needed, this resistance to motion is completely removed. Looking at diagram, you will find adjusting lever and adjusting screw. These are to adjust brake force. Brake force is required to be proper. You might have experienced it in case of your bicycle. You are required to get brakes adjusted so that proper brake force is available. If brake force is less, bicycle may take longer to stop. On the other side, if it is more, bicycle may stop suddenly, causing jerk to you. In diagram, brake shoe on left is leading brake shoe. This is because wheel is rotating in anti-clockwise direction and it causes movement towards left. Other brake shoe on right is trailing brake shoe. The shoe on right hand side will become leading if wheel rotates in clockwise direction. That is, motion is towards right. We have seen that force applied through brake pedals is transferred to pistons inside wheel cylinder. Further, it pushes brake shoes and causes frictional resistance to motion. Brake torque produced by leading and trailing brake shoes is not equal. To understand it, let us go through a simple analysis. Referring to diagram, motion is towards right. Therefore, brake shoe shown is leading brake shoe. It is pivoted at O on upper end and is being pushed by force F on the lower end. In the middle portion, it is in frictional contact with wheel drum as shown. Anti-clockwise moment due to force F is equal to Fv, where V is the vertical distance between F and pivot center O. Due to normal force N, frictional force mu n acts downwards. Clockwise moment due to this force is equal to mu n into small r, where r is the radius of wheel drum. Due to force N, clockwise moment about O, center of pivot, is equal to nr, where r is the vertical distance. Anti-clockwise moment due to force F is equal to Fv. Total clockwise moment is given as nr plus mu n into small r. In state of equilibrium, moments in anti-clockwise and clockwise direction are equal. Therefore, Fv is equal to nr plus mu n into small r, that is equal to n into r plus mu small r. This gives n is equal to Fv upon r plus mu small r. Brake torque acting on drum is entirely due to frictional force mu n. Brake torque acting on leading brake shoe T suffix B comma L is equal to mu n into small r. Putting the value of n, we get T suffix B comma L is equal to mu Fv small r divided by capital R plus mu small r. This gives us brake torque in terms of force F. Now let us consider trailing brake shoe. Referring to diagram, forces are acting in similar way. F towards left on one end of brake shoe. Force M is the normal force between brake shoe and drum, causing frictional force mu m acting upwards as shown. Analyzing on the same lines as done previously and equating moments in clockwise and anti-clockwise direction, we get Fv plus mu m into small r is equal to m capital R, or Fv is equal to m capital R minus mu m into small r. That comes to be equal to m r minus mu small r. This gives m is equal to Fv upon r minus mu small r. Brake torque acting on drum is entirely due to frictional force mu m. Brake torque acting on trailing brake shoe T suffix B comma T is equal to mu m into small r. Putting the value of m, we get t suffix b comma t is equal to mu f v small r divided by capital R minus mu small r. This gives brake torque in terms of force F. Comparing the two, that is brake torque on leading brake shoe T suffix B comma L and brake torque on trailing brake shoe T suffix B comma T, it may be observed that these have same numerator. Denominator is capital R plus mu small r in case of leading brake shoe and capital R minus mu small r in case of trailing brake shoe. This indicates that denominator is bigger for leading brake shoe. Brake torque produced by leading brake shoe is small as compared to brake torque produced by trailing brake shoe. This means that leading brake shoe will wear more as compared to trailing brake shoe. To avoid it, one solution is to apply unequal forces on leading and trailing brake shoes. Alternatively, two leading brake shoes may be provided. Here I conclude my discussion for this lecture. Thanks for watching.